First, I do want to ask you, how was your week in the gym?
Dude, it's been good. It's been really good. I've struggled, right, for the past couple years. And I was starting to get, like, things were starting to come around at the beginning of the year. And I got this terrible tennis elbow. It literally debilitated me right before the trip to Vancouver. So I was unable to train the way I wanted to there. But I was kind of inspired, man. You know, oh, you got Jed with you there? Oh, there's Jed. What's up, Jed? I was kind of inspired. Oh, your mic went out.
I just muted it while I was picking them up.
Gotcha. I was inspired. So, you know, one of our big things that we always talk about is the value of training to failure. I haven't been able to train to failure the way I've wanted to since I've been recovering from getting sick a couple of years ago. It tears me down. It's too hard for me to recover from. Anyway, but I love training. So I'm discovering that if I can do like a literal 2-3 reps in reserve, I can stay on the bus and keep riding it, day after day. So it's kind of weird to get used to, but then we just had, a guest on recently who was talking about, you know, basically doing that same type thing. And he's a guy who's getting older. And he was saying that, you know, he's not able to, he doesn't want to do like DC anymore. And he's still doing really well without going to failure. So it's something I'm kind of exploring now. So I'm loving it, man. And I'm feeling really good. And I think I'm gaining some muscle back. So anyway, that's the long explanation.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And I guess coming off of that, I'm doing certain things, right? Like I'm not doing as many forced reps as I used to. Like I'm doing a lot more sets where I just kind of like hit the fail rep and then rack it.
Yeah.
I'm doing a lot more sets like that. And like, I still look the same. Like I still look the same. Like, you know what I mean? There's that little bit of, you know, they say it's easier to keep muscle than build it, obviously.
Right.
And I think, you know, a lot of older guys, maybe they're worried about letting off the gas at all, but maybe there's a time when it's actually like preservational. Like obviously it's logical to think that it would be at some
being
point.
able to stay in the gym versus getting hurt, you know, you can't. Yeah. So I still am a big fan and a big proponent of going to failure. I think that you have to figure that out. And I think it's a valuable tool. You know, if you, we've talked about, if you don't understand what failure is, then your reps in reserve, 2 or 3 reps in reserve is probably like, you know, 7. So, you know, there is that.
Hey, have you seen any science at all? I know you've got the other podcasts you do. So have you interviewed anybody or seen any science at all on whether there's a significant, well, not even significant, but whether there's a metabolic difference? Like how much is the metabolic difference from a bodybuilding workout where you have like 1 rep in reserve the whole time or 2 reps in reserve the whole time versus the same bodybuilding workout where you hit failure?
I don't know. Like I can't quote a study.
Know what I mean?
You know, Scott Stevenson would be able to pull studies up. I think there's arguments for both sides, but I think the critical thing is what does 1 rep in reserve mean? You know, like your definition or a new guy who just started training. So I think that's really what it comes down to. First, figure out what failure means. And then from there, I will say this. So Scott and I just did a podcast about effective reps. And so when we first start training, a lot of the reps we do are effective. But after you've been in the gym for 5 years, you know, it might only be that last few reps that are effective reps. So, you know, what are you leaving on the table is my question. If you're in a position where you are trying to put on a guy like Tommy Styles, who's trying to grow as much muscle as possible right now, you know, what is he leaving on the table if he were to say, all right, guys, I'm going to go 3 reps in reserve on everything, you know?
Yeah. It's still hard. I still think, like, I put up a post the other day, like, if you truly want to get in condition, you know, you have to train as hard as you can. Like, I just think most people do. And I was just really surprised how much traction it got. Like,
Yeah.
it got like a ton of shares, which is like not normal, right? And you know, when something gets like an abnormal number of shares, you really notice it. You're like, oh wow, this one's getting like, you know, 30, 40, whatever shares, right?
Yeah.
So and it was just about how, like, I see too many people, they're sticking to their diet and they're doing their hour cardio, but when they're in the gym, their workouts, like, it's like they never really learned how to train and they're already competing, you know? And they're like, you know, I can't quite get in shape. And then there's a lot of people, obviously, that have all the talent in the world and they never really trained that hard. So they eventually hit a ceiling where they hit like a level of competition that they're now having a hard time with. But I just said, you know, like, how you train, like, I'm so convinced that training really hard is the biggest metabolic driver, you know?
Absolutely.
It's like, you know, that lay on the couch and burn calories. That's why I'm so confident with not, like, I don't prescribe tons of cardio for people. I use like calorie deficits I use cardio, but you know, I'm not a 2 hour a day guy at all. Like, I don't do that to people because I just take food away. Like, I'm a believer in the deficit. If you're just in a true deficit, and some people think they burn more calories than they do, right? Some people are like, oh, I'm in a giant deficit. And I'm like, no, you need to pull like 400 calories.
Yeah.
To really get lean, you know?
Yeah, I think sometimes people can freak out when they see what it really takes to get shredded, because on paper it looks nasty. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like I've had lots of people message me. They're like, hey, just letting you know that I'm on less than 2,000 calories.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I know. I was 260 pounds and on 2,000 calories at some point.
Yeah.
Doing all protein days and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just to like try to cinch on the glutes.
Yeah.
You know, all the shit we did. So yeah, it's kind of funny. Some people just, you know, I mean, I'm glad people are paying attention to the numbers, but some people, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, have you ever been driving with your GPS on and it's giving you like a completely route that you know is not right?
Yeah.
Like, the line goes across like there's not even a road there. Like,
right.
The line goes across like a field. There's not even a road. Well, obviously you have to stop paying attention to the data.
Yeah.
Like, you have to like ignore the computer and you have to just look like what's happening. Like, there's no road there. So I have to turn left here because you have to just figure it out now. You have to, you know, it goes back to Star Wars with Luke turning off his targeting computer and using the Force, right? That's a metaphor. Like, sometimes you just have to go, you know what? I know what everybody fucking tells me I'm supposed to, like, I know what the numbers are and I read all the studies and stuff, but like right now I just got to do some all protein days.
Dude,
something's got to happen.
You said a term the other day, a few weeks ago, and it sums this up perfectly. Is spreadsheet bodybuilding. There comes a point that you have to go beyond that.
Yeah, like, the mirror is, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Like,
just remember, like, a guy like Nasser El-Sanbadi, he said many times that he never had his body fat checked once. Ever.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you ever have your body fat checked?
So I think I've been calipered like twice in my whole life.
And that wasn't like to gauge, like, oh, we got to check my body fat so that I can decide what to do with the diet. You're probably like, oh, dude, I'm shredded. Like, I'm going to see, right?
No, it wasn't. Okay. It was both times where just somebody had a caliper and they're like, let's see how fat Ron is.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? So, like, I remember I got calipered in Australia when I was like 19.
Yeah.
Someone did like a 11-point caliper on me.
Right.
And they told me I was 13% body fat.
Okay.
And then I remember getting calipered at some point when we opened the gym because my buddy had a set and he just wanted to see what I was. And we never did the formula, but he just did the millimeters. And he's like, oh, your millimeters are really low on certain body parts because I'm pretty lean right now.
Yeah.
But they didn't even give me a percentage.
Okay. So when you were 19 and you got tested, so you're pretty young at that time, and you were 13, the reading said at least.
Yeah.
Would you have guessed you were leaner than that or heavier than that, or you don't remember?
I thought they were going to tell me I was fatter than that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a sign of a hard worker. You know what I mean? That's a sign of a guy who's,
all.
yeah.
Well, because I remember my friend said, he said, you got to be 12% all year. Like my one buddy was like, got to be 12% or less all year. And I came back at 13. He's like, you're fat. Because he was amazing. Like a stay lean type of guy, like abs, quads, like you got to look good. Like you got to be able to go to the beach and look good all year, right?
Yeah.
So he's like 12% max. And I came back at 13. It was hilarious.
Yeah. You know, we had a question about dealing with bloat. I don't remember where it is offhand, but it takes me back to something you said on an early episode. I wasn't on it. So I'm sitting here watching it, and I literally just busted out laughing. You're like, the question was like, you know, how do I deal with being bloated in the off season? And you're like, yeah, I remember being bloated in the off season. That was for about 15 years straight. You know, on that note,
it's true.
Yeah, on that note, man, can you talk a little bit about that? Because I had a whole conversation with a client maybe a few weeks ago. It was interesting because we worked together several times, and he'd come to me and he'd be like, "Hey, I want to get in shape. You know, I want to get as lean as I can." We'd diet him down, and then he'd be like, "Okay, thanks. I'm going to go do my thing. You know, peace out." Then he'd come back later another time, be like, "Hey, I want to get in shape again." So we got into this ritual of getting in shape. Well, we got him into really good shape, and he kept going. So we went into an off-season push, and we were 10, 12 weeks in, and he was like, "Okay, now I want to get shredded." And I was like, whoa, hold on. We haven't really grown yet. You know, we haven't really made much progress yet. And he was like, "Well, to me, it's more important that I can just be lean. I want to look good on my vacations." You know, he's not a competitor, but I do think it's important because to me, I thought it was just something we had an understanding of. It was almost it was my fault that I didn't tell him, like, hey, to really grow muscle, it's going to take time. We'd been doing this a long time. I just assumed. I'd known him for a few years. He listens to the podcasts.
Yeah.
But it was something that I didn't communicate with him apparently properly. I think it's something that's important that maybe new listeners might understand. I mean, there's that delaying the gratification, right? In order to really, really make changes, how long do you think it takes to really grow muscle, to make a difference?
Well, I mean, a younger bodybuilder can get a lot out of a year, like just a full year of off season. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
So a lot of times after people do their first show, I'm like, you need at least a full year. Like, don't do another show. Like you want to make changes, right?
Yeah.
And I've been with certain people that have come to me, I've been very clear, like you need to take a couple of years. Like because it depends on how serious, right? It depends on what the person's goals are. If their goals are, hey, I just want to compete for fun.
Yeah.
I want to see if I can, do well in the middle weights. I want to, this or that, right? Hey, I want to try it, that sort of thing. You get in the best shape you can and all that. But I mean, if your goal is to win, literally win. And last time you got fifth, what's the sense in rushing into another show, right?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you're getting seconds and thirds and seconds and close calls and stuff like that, you might want to do a show 2 months later or 6 weeks later, or you know what I mean? But like to really make a significant difference, to like move up in the placings a lot, it's like, you need a good year to put on like between 5 and 10 pounds of actual hamburger, like stage weight.
Yeah.
I like to think like take 5 pounds of hamburger and just pack it on your body.
Yeah. I say the same thing, man. I use that same analogy. Yeah.
Like real stage weight, you're noticeably bigger.
Yeah.
So that's what you want to do.
You can easily put on, 10, 15 pounds of scale weight, but that might not translate into a lot, you know what I mean? After, 10 weeks of an off season. So how did your buddy do? You mentioned your buddy stayed lean all the time. Some people, they have no problem staying lean all the time and they still grow.
Oh, yeah. That's my buddy, John. He turned pro. He did the Olympia in 2003, John Davey. Yeah. From Australia. Yeah. So he was like a pro, But he was one of
Okay.
those guys that looked good all year. Like he, you know, he's in there. You know, they all have tans all year and everything. Those Aussie bodybuilders.
Yeah. Man, I've seen some of those guys. They get really shredded. I don't know. I feel like when I think of Australian bodybuilders, I think of some really peeled guys. I mean, I'm sure they're not all peeled, but at least the ones that listen to our show, man, they're like some of the most hardcore guys there are.
Oh yeah, there's a bunch of hardcore guys down there. It's good. It's good. Oh, my camera just did the flicker that you hate.
You saw it this time. Okay.
Yeah. But I ordered a new adapter, so we'll see if that's it.
Okay. Yeah. We finally had somebody
good
comment about it. They were like, it looks like Ron's on the
okay.
Matrix.
Yeah, maybe it's my effect. I have an effect on.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
had a question I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
I got it in my question thing that I put up, my box.
Yes. You got it in your box.
Yeah, what's in the box? Okay. 7, did you get that?
Yes.
Okay. Favorite Hollywood muscled up movie from the 80s?
Oh, God, there were so many of them, man. We used to have
There were
good
so
role models
many.
back then, you know, growing up. Role
Yeah,
models that taught
real
us to
men.
be jacked, take steroids, you know?
Yeah. Be jacked, shoot machine guns,
Yeah.
you know, solve
some gear.
everything.
Yeah.
Solve everything with violence.
Man, I think,
Revenge is a virtue.
yeah. Yeah, you got to get good revenge, you know, even if
Oh, you
it
gotta
costs
get
you
good
everything,
revenge,
you know,
Oh, yeah.
and you get shot in the process. Rambo is right up there. You know what I mean?
Oh, man, I was going to say Rambo.
Were you?
It's funny because I thought about this morning. Because First Blood, if you watch First Blood again, which I actually recently did,
Yeah.
First Blood's like, it's more of a drama. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it kind of is, isn't it?
With like action in it, but it's a little more of a drama. Like there's more of a story of like him, you know, the grizzled, you know, semi mentally ill Vietnam vet,
Right.
you know. And but then Rambo is just like straight up action movie,
Oh, yeah.
you know.
Yeah,
'Cause
by
it's
the time they
Rambo
got
First
to
Blood Part 2, right? Yeah,
by that
yeah,
point,
yeah.
they had like like he became a cliche of himself almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you know, he had the bandana and the bow with the explosive tips.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know?
Blew that guy up.
Yeah. Boom.
That was like the
that was good.
VHS days where you could like put that back and hit the slow motion button. You know what I mean?
And also, too, one of my favorite Arnold movies by far. It's one of the best ones for one-liners. It's one of the best ones for he looks great in it. Like, you know, it's like real Arnold era is
Okay.
Commando.
Oh, Commando. And he had that like that paint on his face. You know those
Commando
stripes.
is top shelf
Yeah.
Arnold bullshit. Yeah.
Yeah,
It
that was
is-
good. That was good.
Commando's a great one. That's one of my favorite ones. And you got to also, it's a little weird because Alyssa Milano's in it, but she's like a little girl.
Yeah,
She's his
yeah, that's
daughter.
right.
And it's just like weird. You see it now, you're like, oh, wow, that's like so weird. That was even before she was even on TV, I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That's a great movie.
Yeah. I keep thinking, you know what movie I really liked was Total Recall.
Oh, yeah.
It's not one
Yeah.
that you think of when you think of like what was the best, Arnold movie ever. But I just remember really enjoying that movie and the spins to it, the whole sci-fi element. I enjoyed that.
Yeah. Remember the scene where he pulls the tracker out of his nose?
I do. Yeah, that was classic.
Yeah, I remember seeing that and being like, oh, man. Yeah, that was good. You watch it now and it's kind of funny, right? Because it's
Oh
like,
yeah,
you know,
the
it's
effects
80s.
are.
And another great one is what's the one? Blow off some steam, Bennett. Running Man.
Oh, you know what? I don't even know if I ever saw Running Man, to be honest.
Oh man, Running Man's great. Running Man's got like a video game feel because
Okay.
he's got these different guys he's got to get by. It's like
Yeah.
it's in the future and it's like a twisted TV show where they take a criminal and they put him on like a death maze,
Okay.
and there's different guys along the way that try to kill him.
No kidding.
Yeah. It's great. It's like a dystopian future show, but every character is like really cheesy in it. You know what I mean? It's good. A lot of one-liners. Oh yeah.
You know, Arnold is. We just saw we didn't watch. We watched part of the first episode. Arnold is in a new Netflix series. Did you hear that?
Yes. It's called Fubar.
Yes. Have you checked it out at all?
I watched a trailer, and I mean, I'm going to check it out. I mean, it looks like it's a bit of a cheesy comedy drama.
Yeah, there's like some campiness to it. It doesn't get too hard or heavy. Yeah.
It's not super serious. It sort of has a bit of a True Lies vibe to it.
Okay. Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what he actually said.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because when we were talking to him at that meet and greet that I got to go to, I actually asked him what his favorite movie ever was that he made, and he said True Lies.
No kidding.
He said he goes, I think True Lies is like the best movie that I made for like the quality of the script and the team that was on the movie, and I guess he got to work with he's good friends with Tom Arnold, so he said it was like nothing but laughs the whole time because it was just a really good experience. And then he said that the new show had like a True Lies vibe because he's a CIA agent and all this kind of thing going on.
Yeah. I watched we might have watched like the first 30 minutes of the first episode, and we just kind of lost interest, and we're like, yeah, maybe we'll come back to this later. But it wasn't
okay.
Like, there was some action in the beginning, and then it kind of like slows down, and then the story starts building. But we might come back to it. You'll have to let me know if you watch that.
You got to be prepared for a setup episode,
Yeah.
Do some setting up.
Yeah, you do.
So we got to establish the father-daughter dynamic, I guess, is probably what they're doing.
Yeah, there is. Yeah,
okay.
You're actually, that was pretty much what was happening. Right. Let's just get to the shooting and all of that,
Yeah. I want death. I want revenge. It all comes back to revenge, Scott.
I got a few here. I don't know what we have listed. By the way, I should tell everybody, guys, if you want to take part in the next show, then comment. We'd love to have your questions on everything, bodybuilding, off topic, supplements, training, anything else you guys want to talk about. But Nick left us one. I haven't even read it ahead of time. I just literally read the fact that it said question for the next episode. So I'm going to grab it, all right? He said, question for the next episode, when I load plates on the lower pin of the leg press at my gym, the weight feels heavier than when I load the top pins. Any reason for this, or does it matter where I load the weight? Also, when training legs, I find it difficult to connect with or feel my quads through movements like squats and leg press, particularly when I'm lifting a heavier weight. Other than dropping the weight and slow down the reps, do you guys have any other tips that would help me build that connection in my quads? Great connection in my hams, which makes sense to me then, and they usually end up sore even when I don't do ham-focused movements in my workout.
Well, first of all, I wish he had a picture of his leg press, but I'm envisioning a normal, like 35 or 45 degree leg press with a sled on it that just moves in a linear fashion.
Yeah.
If that's the case, then the pegs make no difference. Higher or lower pegs. If there's pegs out the sides and then pegs on the top or something, there's no difference. The weight is moving on the same strength curve. It's all about the curve of the weight. So if it's a swing arm leg press, like there is a prime plate loaded leg press.
Oh, they have one now?
Where you can actually, move the one, the one part so that, it's either top loaded or bottom loaded. You know what I mean?
That's what my leg press does. My Nautilus leg press.
Yeah. Yours has a tilting platform, so it sort of ergonomically reduces ankle flexion.
Yes.
Doesn't? Yes. Yeah. So that would be, that would feel different because you have two different sets of pegs on yours too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yours definitely has that sweep to it. But if it's just a straight rail, like if it's on a rail, no, the pins don't matter.
Yeah. I didn't figure that out on my leg press for a while. And if you just load up the bottom pegs, it will just level you. Like it just just drops you. So it's finding a balance between the bottom and the top. And it's a heavy leg press. It's not like the Cybex leg press where you're literally like loading up 10 plates on each side until you can't fit more, and then you have to make it hard. It's like this, even at my best, I was getting like 7 plates per side, and that was a brutal set. Still 10, 12 reps, but Yeah, I would load up just the bottom pegs for like the first 3 months of owning it, and it would just crush me, and I couldn't figure it out. And I said, you know what? And I switched it to just the top, and it was completely different. So, but yeah, in most cases, what do you think of his situation with legs? Because I find a lot of people to have the opposite issue. You know, especially guys who've been at it for a while. A lot of guys who say have some experience and some level of development, they come to me and they have good quads, but they don't get the hamstring activation. But he's got the opposite. He's ham dominant.
Yeah. You know, I do want to make sure that there's a little bit of caution taken with some of this stuff. I think some people think they're supposed to feel things more than they are actually supposed to. Like, yeah, you want to be able to feel your quads. Obviously, maybe he does have a deficit there where he needs to, make that better. But also, too, there's a lot of sets where you're just blindly pushing as hard as you possibly can with every single bit of your body.
Yeah,
and on those reps, you're not thinking about where you're feeling things. Like if you're mechanically set up right, then the tension will go there, and you don't need to like always be thinking about it. Like sometimes you're just thinking, fucking smash this rep. Yeah. You know what I mean? You're not thinking, about like, okay, let's feel this. Cause there's a certain amount that you just have to believe in your mechanics. You don't want to have to think about it all the time. Right. So, he just has to, I think he probably would benefit from just making sure that he's putting his feet in like a more quad, effective position, getting really good depth, lots of knee flexion, get his ankle flexion up, warm up his calves, make sure he can bend his foot back a long way so he can squat deep with like a quad focus. And make sure he's sinking the leg presses and keeping the hips set and just making sure his execution is mechanically set up for tension in the quads. And then he doesn't have to, like, I guess, quote unquote, worry about it so much.
Yeah.
And it'll come over time. But yeah, I mean, reduce the weight, like get full range of motion, control it all, and then just believe in your mechanics and train really hard,
I'd agree. I'd agree with that. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something that sometimes we can miss. And I've had clients I've had that conversation with where they're like, well, I lose the connection. I don't feel the connection in my hamstring, for instance. And I'm like, well, if you're using this movement, if you're doing, this movement, as long as you're not feeling it if we're doing a stiff leg, as long as you're not like lifting it with your back, then we're getting your hamstrings are doing something. As long as you're not throwing your back out, they're activating. Yeah. It's all working in a chain. We're not surgically using just one muscle. And yeah, if you go light, you can kind of like keep that mind muscle connect. And I think people are a little bit too worried about that. Same with rows, that people are like, well, I lose the connection in my lat, if I pull too far. And it's like, well, it is important to build that connection and understand it. But you put it really well. You have to get to a point where then you rely on that muscle working in the chain, the way your body was designed to work. It wasn't designed to just lift one muscle at a time. If you're doing a compound movement, you're using multiple muscles,
Yeah. And like I remember Dorian saying that he never thought about back. Like he never thought about lower back, upper back, lats, upper lats, lower lats. He just thought about his back as just one thing. I have to make all the muscles on my back move through full ranges of motion. He didn't think like, oh, I got upper back day, width day. I remember him talking about that. He's like, you're just train your whole back with big movements. Like overload your back. Your back will grow as one. Like he was really big on that, But yeah, you got to believe in your mechanics. Think about like, how mechanics, like, biomechanics is math. It is, and numbers don't change. Numbers don't, like, if your feet are here and your hips are here, the tension's going to focus on your quad. There's nothing that can really change that. Another great quote, Lane Norton, I remember he said something, "Oh, you're all worried about whether your glutes are activating on your squats. I got news for you. If you're squatting down and standing back up, your glutes are activating. Because if they didn't, you'd fall over."
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
like, "You're squatting. That's all the evidence you need that your glutes are activating.
Yeah.
You know, the rest of it is biomechanic nuance, moving things around, but they're working. I guarantee they're firing. Like, people have this idea like they're not firing. Like, if you stuck a muscle innervation, test needle in the muscle, it would just say nothing. But no, it's you know what I mean?
Yeah.
People, I think, get a little too hung up on activation.
Now I wonder,
or
so
being concerned with it.
like this guy's particular situation. So if we were working together, I would want to obviously see video, of what he was doing.
Yeah.
What is his stance?
We're all
like?
talking.
Yeah.
Right.
Because like you said, where's his foot positioning? I think that's a factor. I know that when I first started squatting, I felt comfortable taking a wide stance. And then the heavier I went, the wider that stance got. And then before you know it, like my feet are like all the way out as far as they can be in the rack, because I'm trying to squat 3.5 plates. And that's what I needed to do it comfortably. I retooled that, learning to squat with about a shoulder width stance. And I had to go much lighter. In fact, I used body weight to relearn that. And then I built from there. And from there, I was able to build some quads. I do wonder, because we run into issues. Like, you see a guy who has like the craziest, there's always, we talked about gym stereotypes. Once in a while, you see trap guy. He's all traps. You know what I mean? You see that guy? There's no shoulders, no nothing else, maybe some pecs, but traps are like the most incredible thing on his body. Usually that guy doesn't have as good as shoulders. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of times we're using the traps when we're trying to do lateral raises. And the same thing is true. Like I've seen, we have really good shoulders, but then not a good chest. You get a muscle that just wants to take the load, and whatever he's doing in his squat, he's setting it up so that his hamstrings will take the load. And I think that there could possibly be a shift in there in his stance that, what though, if he shifts that stance, he's not going to be nearly as strong as he was, right? Because our body wants to move the weight. So if we're trying to move that weight, we're going to try to do that with the muscles that we're strongest with. So if your hams and glutes are real strong, then sure, they're going to want to do that work. How do you put yourself into a position where the quads are working harder? It might take lightening up the weight, because he was like, "Can you have any suggestions besides lightening the weight?" I don't want to do all that, but he might need to, because his quads are obviously not as strong as his hamstrings are. Maybe he needs to retool that.
Yeah. So one rule that I always followed was, I don't even remember who said this, but I got this from somewhere, and it always just made, that's a rule. The joint that moves the most will do the most work. So if you think of your hip flexion and your knee flexion, if at the bottom of your squat, your hip is, let's say, 45 degrees, right? But your femur and upper leg are 90 degrees, then that means your hip is bent more than your knee. So your glutes are doing more work.
Okay.
So you have to shift your stance so that your knee flexion is more than your hip flexion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then your quads are doing more of the work. So that's like the kind of the rule that I think in my head. The joint that has the biggest range of motion has to experience the most, drive. So,
I found to get that, what I needed to do was put plates under my heels initially. And I know they make the platforms now, but that allowed me to bring my stance in tighter and begin working directly, like more into the quad focused squat. I wonder too, what do you think about like the pre-fatiguing? I used to try to do like extensions and then go into my compound movements.
Yeah, I don't want to like spew bullshit, but I remember I was talking to somebody about this, and they said that from everything, all the data they'd looked at, if you did say your leg extensions,
Yeah.
like did your extensions, and then later you went to your the leg press, your quads would be more exhausted, and you wouldn't have to use as much weight to get the most out of your quads.
Yeah.
Right? Which is a benefit for older guys. But they said that if you did it in a superset, if you did the extensions first, and then hopped right on the leg press while your quads have technically just failed, right?
Okay.
Or come close to failure.
Right.
What happens is your body sends way more neural drive to your glutes.
Oh, because it's like, oh crap, my quads are fried. Interesting.
So it actually, so it could actually be a tool to hit a muscle group. Like you could, theoretically, you could like fry your triceps on a set of push downs and then bench press, and your body would send more neural drive to your pecs. So a guy with weak pecs could actually use that as a strategy.
Weird. I never heard
really
that before.
I can't remember who told me that, but I was like really fascinated. Yeah. And I sort of thought, that actually I remember I used to do cable crossovers, and then I dropped to the floor and do push-ups. Yeah. And I remember thinking every time, man, my triceps get fucking pumped from that. And I'm not trying to train them.
Yeah.
I'm doing chest. But when you drop to do the push-ups, your chest is fried. So your triceps just drive everything, and they get like rammed.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, like, I'm not trying to train my triceps. They're getting so pumped doing these push-ups, like crazy pumped.
Yeah.
And so that's I've sort of thought, hey, this might make sense.
Weird. I know Jean-Pierre Fuchs, he talked about, and he had crazy legs. He talked about getting on an exercise bike and just like going all out. I can't remember for how long, but for minutes, or whatever. Yeah. It's like just crank, and then get off and go straight to the squat bar.
Right.
That's insane, man. Like one cardio skill, then loading with cardio after that. That would be a brutal one.
Yeah. I remember doing the Mike Mentzer hit. So that was like, a 45-pound plate pinned to the leg extension stack for, a set of 10 with a forced rep, and then get right under the Smith bar and squat 4 plates.
Wait, what did you start with?
6 reps. What do you mean?
What was it? You can you say it again?
Yeah, like extensions.
Oh, extensions.
Like pinned to the stack.
Yeah.
Like for, a failure set with a forced rep, and then hop under the Smith bar with 405 and do a set of like 6 reps. Yeah. And be just smoked after. But back then when I used to do that, like those were in my like early days when I was like really experimenting with heavy duty and different Dorian. Like Dorian had a few earlier splits too that I did. And so, I was having a lot of fun training like that. But that was one of Mentzer's heavy duty splits, was leg extensions and then Smith machine squats.
And they were like back to back.
Back to back, and like massive failure, heavy weight, both on both. You know what I mean? So that's what I was doing.
For a little while, I did leg press, about 12, I think it was, 12 reps to failure. Like not hard failure, just 12 reps. And then when I was about to fail, then stop, immediately get up and then go to a heavy squat for 6 reps.
Right.
That was tough. I remember I saw a video of myself doing that, and I got 315 for 6. And I was like, God, I remember just how hard that was too, because your legs are just so cooked,
Yeah. I remember it's funny. I was squatting 4 plates in high school, right?
Yeah.
So, like I was a 4-plate squatter for a long time when I was young, like my whole I got to 4 plates pretty quickly, and I could squat it for reps, like, any day of the week. Right. And, so I remember, I think about how that would crush me now, doing a set of extensions to failure and then trying to squat 4 plates. Like, I can't even get, if I do an set of extensions to failure, it's like I can barely squat down with my body.
Yeah.
I can't imagine.
Hey, kind of follow up here. It's semi-related because we're talking about leg training. Somebody's asking your opinion on the V squat. And then they said compared to the hack squat. What do you think of the V squat though?
So the V squat, technically, like, that's a hammer machine. They make the hammer V squat. There's other machines that people might call a V squat because they're similar or whatever, but the V squat is actually the hammer one, which is it's like you got the pads on the shoulders and it's on like a hinge arm.
Yep.
Does everybody know that machine?
Oh yeah.
You want to put it up maybe?
I'll find one.
Screen?
I'll find one.
Yeah, hammer V squat. Throw one up. We'll do a little equipment thing. V squat, right. And then find yeah. He's got it.
All right, I gotcha.
And then also find pull up an Atlantis power squat too.
Okay. Yeah.
Afterwards. Pull this one up. So yeah, the hammer V squat. I mean, I've used it before. The gym I trained at had one when I was competing, and I used it, fairly frequently. Like maybe every second, third leg workout, I'd use it. Usually as a finisher, sometimes to start with. It's not the best squat machine. That's the hammer V squat. It's not my favorite squat machine. I mean, we used it because it was pretty good. But one of the things is if you're big and strong, you can fill it up, no problem.
Yeah.
So I remember we had it full, and then we had to put bands on it and shit. And we were trying to figure out a way to put a bar across the back so we could put more weight on it. And yeah, there's stuff like that. So we maxed it out pretty easy. But that's what a V squat is. So I'd rather have a hack squat. If I went to a gym and they had a hack squat, I'd be happier.
Here's the hack squat that I have in the basement.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
That's the exact one I have. Dude, it is so heavy. It's not a hack squat that you can load. It's not like an ego lifting machine.
No.
I would be interested. I would love to get a good pro level bodybuilder over here and see what they use. Like, get someone like Nate Spear is really strong. I'd love to have Nate over for a workout and see what he does with this thing. See if he can get up to 6-7 plates. Because I'm telling you, even 2 plates on this thing, it gets heavy fast. Unloaded, it's heavy.
Yeah. Maybe Body Masters. Maybe that's just a really heavy sled. But that's a great hack.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can get a lot more out of a hack, I think.
I think so. I think nowadays hack was really popular for a while, and now at least for a while, their pendulum squats became very popular. Like, that was the jam that if you were a good gym, you wanted to get a pendulum squat in there for your guys.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Right.
Are they still as popular as they were a couple of years ago?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much everyone's ordering one now. I mean, we got one a little ahead of the curve. Like, we had one, we bought it off a gym that closed. But not everyone had one when we got ours, which was 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's funny how many gyms have gotten pendulums in the last 4 years. Like, it's crazy. They made thousands of them and pumped them out,
Yeah.
probably 1 million pendulum squats sold in the last 4 years around the world.
Dude, I saw one a couple years ago on Facebook Marketplace. It was there. The guy wanted $500 for it. And it was gone within minutes. So
Paramount, I don't know who made the
and it was a Paramount.
There was a bunch of swing squats. Like, there was a bunch of swing squats with plates on both sides and that sort of thing. But then I remember Paramount made that pendulum squat. And as far as I know, that was the first that style, that we're talking about now. The single arm, and you put plates behind the head, that one. So Paramount made that one, and I remember it was a super cool piece, but it wasn't a huge hit. They didn't make 1 million of them or anything, and it was kind of rare. You wouldn't see a lot of them.
Yeah.
And then they just I mean, it's probably, I wonder how much of it was Dusty. Dusty, he would have had some to do with it.
I'm sure he did.
Killing the pendulum. He was way ahead of the curve, right? That Jimmy trained at had a pendulum, and they were just smashing that thing on social media. Yeah. And they, I don't know. And then a lot of other people, the collectors and stuff. And how Instagram just changed things, people sharing their pictures and video, it just changed everything.
Yeah.
And it's funny what the pendulum squat did, because it was a dead relic for a while. If you saw a pendulum, you're like, oh, wow, they got one of these old things.
Yeah. Yeah.
There wasn't even anyone manufacturing one.
Really?
A long time. I don't remember. I don't know. Is there such thing as a 2005 pendulum squat? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I don't know what year Paramount quit making them, and what year Atlantis started making theirs. Like, who knows? There's gonna be a gap in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Because you didn't see them for a while. Like, they were not a thing.
No, they weren't. Yeah. So I don't know, man. I'll tell you what. I feel like I can tweak my lower back if I'm not careful with a hack squat, and you're not going to do that with a pendulum squat. It's just not going to happen.
So I'm trying to reduce spinal load.
Yeah.
I'm doing everything I can to reduce spinal load. I think compression has caused me some issues, and I'm just trying to minimize what I do to my spine.
That makes sense.
So I've been belt squatting a lot.
Okay. Yeah.
And people ask me all the time what my favorite belt squat is. And I've used a bunch of them. And honestly, like, we have the Atlantis, and I really like it. Like, it's awesome. And when I go to use other belt squats at other gyms now, I always feel like they're just, I don't know. Like, I'm just so used to the Atlantis now that the other belt squats just don't feel the same. But I love it. I use it all the time. I don't put any bars on top of my back anymore.
Okay.
And I still hack squat, though. But pendulum is even less spinal load because your hips are a little more flexed.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, you're not like this at the top. You're actually kind of in like your hips are kind of bent a bit. So there's less load on the spine. It's sort of more like against your back.
Well, not only that, but it's from the hips down versus being like a bar on the top of your neck, compressing everything.
Even though it's still a squat movement, the way the weight loads is almost against your back instead of down on your shoulders.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. But yeah, it's a very effective machine, and I mean, the belt squat and the pendulum, I mean, it's like my leg workout.
Yeah, those are two great ones to use too.
I live on those now.
Avoiding getting hurt. We got a bunch of training stuff, man. We got one here behind Dusty's back. It's a question related to Dusty. We can talk shit about his training. Long live the king. He had said, basically what it comes down to is he says, okay, what does perfect form mean to each of you? When I see some coaches, I interpret it as no muscle moves except for the one that's being targeted. And from others, it's the form that makes you feel the targeted muscle the most, regardless of how strict it is. So perfect form, Justin Shire's form, or Dusty's pull form, the bent over rows form. He says, for the record, I prefer Dusty's. Dusty's not even here.
Well, yeah. Well, to me, perfect form is Justin Shire.
Okay. Like,
I really like how he trains. Like, that's like we even joke, like, we'll go over to the leg curl, and Braden will say something like, it's Justin Shire, this one. He's turning into, like, he's become a verb.
Yeah.
We're going to Shire this. We'll just do a Shire set. It's a noun. It's a noun and a verb.
That's great.
Say, Shire this set. Yeah. No, his form's fantastic. And I really like when I see that my clients have watched his video and liked it.
Okay. That they've been influenced. Good. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Watch him train. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Great idea to watch him train. And how Nick's training too.
Yeah.
Watch how Nick trains. Like, his form's fantastic. And then there's a video of Hani putting Derek Lunsford through back and calf workout that I saw today. And, like, Lunsford's, and rowing and pulling and stuff. And, I mean, these are the best bodybuilders on the planet. Like, maybe copy how they train. Now, the explosive style of Dusty doing those rows, that's an exception, because if you watch Dusty do like 95% of his other exercises, it's the same as those guys doing those exercises. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
his leg press.
Dusty's not like that on everything. Yeah. Watch him leg press. Watch him do tricep extensions.
Yeah.
Watch him do, he's very strict. So there's a little bit of, there's lots of, like, Justin Shire moves things pretty slowly. I'm not saying you have to move them that slowly, but the form is to me perfect. So yeah, I mean, it's all explosive stuff is very useful though, especially for especially for back.
Oh, I just got a message from Jim.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna send him this this link over really quick. How do I answer this one, man? Perfect form, because I mean, like, I don't know, like I can't say that Justin's wrong, right? I can't say that Dusty's wrong, you know, because both
Well,
things
no, but
are
I don't think they're
working
really
for
different. It might appear to be different, but they're still
Well,
driving with the target muscles, and
right, right.
you know, I mean, Dusty's bent over rows is like I said, an exception. Like they're picking like one exercise that he performs differently. But if you watch him like incline barbell press, it's the same. It's like the bar comes down, it goes up, perfect control. It comes down, it goes up. Like it's not like anything's different. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. You know, I guess for me, the definition of form is different today. Like I assumed that, like, so form to me at one point was like just in a textbook, you know,
Right.
that you move weight from point A to point B, you do so in, you know, a certain amount of speed. And that's to me what form was. And I guess to me now form is like connecting with what you're trying to do, you know, because in both cases,
yeah,
you know, like what you're saying, Dusty and Justin are both annihilating whatever they're trying to train. You know, they're not letting it get away from that target, the goal. It's not like they're using, and it's interesting, right, man, because this is a very different world than 15 years ago. It's like, is this the backlash to lightweight baby? You know what I mean?
It's so funny. That's so funny. You know, there was that era where it was lightweight baby, and it's shifted. But this also goes to the argument that I've seen a few people make. Is I've seen an argument from several people. They're like, everyone's trying to find the perfect way to train, and they're forgetting that all you need to do is overload the muscle.
Yeah,
So that's you're forgetting. So like if two people can have different form, but if they're both overloading the muscle with that form, then the result will be adaptive response in the tissue. And you know you're making this too complicated, and that form is actually way overrated. I saw one quote from one person. They said that form is way more important for athletic application than for hypertrophy. So if you're teaching someone an athletic skill or an athletic movement, then form is absolutely crucial, because they're doing maybe, like, for example, backflips and you know, gymnastics and, you know, Olympic weightlifting, where they're trying to lift absolutely maximal loads. So they have to get the physics correct and all that stuff. But they said for actual hypertrophy, all you have to do is overload the tissue to fatigue.
yeah,
Your form can actually suck. But if you do enough reps with enough weight, the tissue will get overloaded. So you know what I mean? That was the argument. The argument that was, of all the different types of weight training, form matters the least for hypertrophy.
as long as you don't get hurt. I think that's the key, right?
Yeah.
Hit the target muscle, don't get hurt.
Overload the target muscle, don't get hurt, right? So that was like, as long as it's within those parameters, you can get results. Well, and I was like, well, it kind of makes sense, right? Like you might have to crank load to get the overload because, you know, your form sucks. Like if you had better form, you could use less weight, still get the overload. You know, like, so it's like the risk benefit thing, and you know what I mean? But for actually causing the hypertrophy, it doesn't matter much. And I was like, that's an interesting take.
Yes.
You know? What do you think of that?
I think we've got Jim in the green room, so we should wrap this thing up and
okay.
You know, say thank you to our Saturday viewers and then bring Jim in.
Let's do it. Okay, so like, share, subscribe, comment, and
ring the bell, and thank you guys for tuning in for the Saturday edition. Sorry we didn't have Dusty with us, but we're always glad to hang with you guys.
Yes, much appreciated. Remember, IamMutant.com. Use my code BigRon20. 20% off.
20. No Dusty 20 this week.
Not today. No Dusty 20 today. Okay, we got to do the other show that you're going to see before this one. We're going back in time. Adios. Remember, it's just bodybuilding.